Nighter. This is the Outside Gate with Steve Hall on the L4 Media Network, where we usually talk US moto and anywhere the conversation goes. It's my pleasure today to have a 3-time World Enduro champion, 2-time GNCC champion, ISDE champion, Erzberg champion, and the list just keeps going on and on. David Knight, how are you?
Spot on, Steve. Good to be on it, and yeah, all good here in the Isle of Man, apart from the weather as usual. But yeah,
Thank you, man. It's great to talk to you. Obviously, I'm a big fan and followed your career, man. You've just been to the US. What have you been up to just lately?
always busy, Steve. Just the guy that I race for. So, Classic Car Club is in Manhattan. It's so Phil's the owner of it, English guy. Got to know. He'd actually been to the Isle of Man and went riding with my brother years ago. I was away racing somewhere. So he was one of the main people that helped me through the Dakar. When it all looked like it was going to go tits up, Phil come in and from that moment on, we've just got on like a house on fire. Great guy, helped me. So yeah, so I'm sort of racing for him. And yeah, he's in New York, so quite a few visits to America again, which I love. Racing, we were just over there then. The missus come with me, went over, bit of a holiday, sorted some stuff out, went riding. So yeah, it was nice. It was sort of nice to go out there and not have a race. Pretty much every time I've ever been to America, there's been a race on. So it was nice to just enjoy it for what it is and get a couple of days on the bike and have a bit of sightseeing, I guess.
Yeah. So who's the guy that's sort of supporting you on racing the Kawasaki now?
Yeah, so we're sort of. I've got a Cowie, so I've been doing a lot of vlogs, just different bikes, KTM mainly, buy a KTM and then try and make it a good race bike out of it, like we do. You get a stock bike and you put your ECU on and your suspension and change little things here and there, and you build a bike into like a factory bike almost. And so I've been doing quite a few of them, which have gone down really well, especially in Australia. So the last sort of one I did with a 300XC KTM, all the comments after, I was like, what would you like to see me build next? And everyone was like, oh, do a jack bike, which was sort of something I wanted to do anyway. So I was like, I've got a Honda motocross bike and not necessarily a great enduro bike. Just quite savage, the motor on it. You could obviously make it into one, but lots of people red motor, you can buy a Honda as an enduro bike. So Yamaha, obviously big over with you guys, WR. So you can get that. So I just thought Cowie, new Cowie model out. No one's built one. I spoke to Stu Baylor a bit in America. Stu loves his.
Yeah.
So I thought, yeah, I'll get a Cowie. So I spoke to Cowie UK, got a bike off them. So I just pay for it when I finish with it, sort of thing. So yeah, that was a whole thing with it. So I'm not tied to anyone. That's a big thing with me and Phil. We sort of keep our options open. We do builds whatever on bikes, and we can go to a race and ride. I could ride a Suzuki one week and a Yamaha the next week and whatever. It's quite nice being able to do that. It's like Stark called me and we went out there, did some testing with them and did all the stuff for the new enduro bike that they're launching. So it doesn't tie you to anyone. You can sort of just, they'll pay you for your time and off you go. So it works well. Obviously, KTM is the bike that I've always sort of, everyone knows me for.
Yeah.
Had a good spell with a Cowie in 09 after the whole BM job. So the Cowie was quite close to my heart as well, really. So that's why I chose that, and the thing's brilliant, Need to do more to it, but yeah. So that's it. So Phil, he's very much like me. He's quite black and white. He's, takes no bullshit, and we enjoy working together and doing stuff. So good bloke, down to earth, loves riding his bikes. We'll go riding, trail riding, or whatever, like we did over there. Have a laugh. A few other boys come out that help us from Solid Performance, which is that's a Gasser, KTM, and Husky dealership, and big WP suspension shop. So yeah, we have a ball, we have a blast when we're over there. So all good.
Cool. And the Isle of Man TTs. So for those that don't know, David, then you damn well should. And he's a Manxman. He's a Manxman, which I only just learnt. I saw that. I was looking up, just refreshing on my night of stats for the show, and I read something where it said Manxman. I didn't realise people from the Isle of Man that was what we were called, but that's pretty cool. And
it's Manx born and bred. I'm like, all my family are from the Isle of Man, and it'll be like calling you boys New Zealanders the same thing. When we get called English, you want to get the knives out. When I was racing in America, people would go like, "Oh, where are you from?" And you'd say the Isle of Man, and not many. There was surprising how many people knew where the Isle of Man was in America, because you obviously know about the TT. But if you didn't know, I'd say I was Irish.
Yeah.
I just say I was Irish. I find it hard to say I'm English. Very hard.
No, I get what you mean a little bit there. Like my mum's half Scottish, and I know I've had even still. So I'm only like quarter Scottish, I guess, but even still, sometimes people will say that they'll refer it to English, and it's like, no, we come from Scotland, not England.
No, it's a big thing. It is a big thing, and I love winding English up as well. So
oh yeah, for sure. Well, that's winding up the English is Aussie pastime. That's that banter. I've got obviously there's a lot of English here, and that's always great fun banter between Aussies and that. So the TT's coming up, Nida. That must be just a crazy time.
Yeah, like people are turning up now. There's bikes, poor buggers, the weather. So I got home from America 2 days ago, and the weather was unbelievable. We got home and it was so hot, like blue skies, hot, like the best summer's day you could hope for in the Isle of Man. And we're like, oh, hopefully this will stay. And then got up yesterday morning, and it's just torrential rain all day, cold. It can change that quick over here, but so yeah, people that are coming over camping with bikes and tents and stuff, you feel sorry for them. But last year was unbelievable. The weather, I think we had like 12 weeks of sun last week, all through TT with no rain, and so that doesn't happen very often over here. So we might be in for a bit of rain this year, but so the TT is a massive, obviously the Isle of Man, it's the main source of income for the island. It's an unbelievable race. I've never missed one. I was born 1978 when Halewood won on a Ducati, and I've never missed one since. Even when I was racing in World Championship of the US, I was straight back to see TT week. So I've never missed it. I wouldn't miss it. So yeah, it's when you're brought up on the Isle of Man as a kid, especially into bikes. Like most kids are into bikes over here because of the TT. But when you're a kid growing up over here with the TT going on, and all the guys that have, your Joey Dunlops, your Steve Hislops, and Fogarty, and all of the guys that have come through, it's amazing growing up, seeing all them different people riding and different styles, and so it's a way of life over here. It really is. It's not just an event. It's for all the kids growing up. It's a way of life, and everyone looks forward to it. Apart from the few English that move over here and move to the TT course and then decide they don't like motorbikes. So you can't help that, can you? You just get that everywhere. So yeah, it's awesome. It was an awesome place to grow up as a kid. My dad and family was into bikes anyway, so but growing up, I always wanted to be a TT rider. That was, looking at trials and motocross and enduros, and I grew up doing trials, but the TT was always going to be the thing that I would end up doing, sort of thing.
The end goal.
Yeah, for sure, and that's what I think most kids over here are the same, and I say, luckily for me, I was good at the off-road stuff, so it kept me away from it. You still, up until even a couple of years ago, I still would love to do the TT, but I've got kids now, and it's a risky old job that. So as much as I'd love to do it, still I wouldn't do it now because of the kids and stuff, and life's good. And but yeah, back in the day, that was always the end goal, to do it. And yeah, so I think I was lucky in a way to be kept apart from it, if you know what I mean, because
Yeah.
it's a bloody dangerous event, and I've lost a lot of friends over the years doing it, but they wouldn't have changed a thing, I don't think, all of them. That was what they wanted to do. That was the only thing in their life that was important. So yeah, it's the next 2 weeks, you don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen in it. It's such a big event, and we might have 2 weeks of sunshine again, or it might piss down for 2 weeks. We don't know. And yeah, so we'll see. But cracking event. And if the amount of people that say to me, "Oh, I've always wanted to go to the TT," and I'm like, go and do it, because it's one of them things that you might always regret not going to it. Or how long can it keep going for? I don't know. The way everything is now, can it go another 10 years? I don't know. So yeah, get there while you can if you're thinking about it.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing, like it's I don't know where it ranks. I've never thought about it too closely, but I don't know where it ranks as just like the most just crazy events in the
Oh, it's
world. But
mental.
it's got to be
Like,
right near the top.
yeah,
the
and like, I've watched it. Like I said, I've watched it. So I'm 46 next week. So I've watched it since I was as far back as I can remember, as maybe a 3-year-old. And I'll go and watch first practice. I always go somewhere quite quick, and maybe a bit of a jump or something like that, and you'll go there and you can hear bikes screaming for maybe 6 miles, 5 miles. You can hear them coming on the distance on a nice night, and then just the speed when they first come around, first lap, dust and shit everywhere, leaves, because it's on roads, obviously they sweep it, but there's still dust and leaves and crap everywhere. And it just gives you goosebumps all the way through your body. And that's still, like, I've seen, like I say, TT every year, pretty much every race that I could. And it still gives you goosebumps. It's mental. So it's good on TV, obviously. When you watch it on TV, it's good, but you don't get that feeling watching it on TV. It's, when people see it in real life, it's amazing, it's unbelievable, it's scary, it's everything, and it's an amazing event. And yeah, long may it continue, I guess.
Yeah, awesome. Nida, we might get into we'll get into your career now then. Hey, my favorite part of the show is hearing about when the bug bites, and your first first time you jumped on a mini bike, or you saw one at a shop, or whatever, and you decided that I've got to ride this thing. When did that happen for you?
You know what, I still remember it like yesterday. I remember my dad rode trials. My brother's 4 years older than me, so he was riding trials, and his old PW50 was in the garage. And it's crazy. I still remember it so clear. I remember walking in the garage and jumping on it and trying to start it. And Dad always said, when you can start it, you can ride it. So I was obsessed. Like, I was obsessed with bikes from as far back as I can remember. I was probably about 2.5, 3 when I started riding, but I always remember that PW50. And I was kicking it over one day and it fired up, and that was that. You know, I remember my dad taking me out on it's actually where I still go riding now, where I've spent 90% of my career training out by the beach in the sand, and the lane going in there. I remember riding up and down that lane all afternoon, happiest kid in the world on this little Pee-wee 50. And yeah, so that was me. That was that gone. And then yeah, just rode that for a couple of years, I guess. Then got onto a TY80 Yamaha trials bike, and that was the start of competition on that. Then doing trials and working your way up like you do, and yeah, loving pretty much every minute of it.
Yeah. When did it start to get serious? You know, did you have a first win or anything like that, or your first sort of big event you did well, or when did you sort of realize that, hey, I'm pretty good at this?
I don't really know. I think I was always super competitive. Like, my dad was the opposite. My mum was competitive. My dad wasn't. My brother wasn't that competitive, but did really well. I think I remember doing the first. We used to have a 2-day trial in the Isle of Man, and I remember 1984. So I was 6 years old, and like, I didn't win or anything, but I got a trophy. I remember getting that trophy. And a lot of guys, the Irish boys and a few English boys, used to come over for that. And I think that was when the bug bit. I'm sure that was when the bug bit. I've still got photos from that. And then as I went through trials, we were basically stuck on the Isle of Man. We didn't have the money. We couldn't afford to go to England riding for years. And so we were just stuck on the Isle of Man, really, which is good. You know, it's a good trials and enduro and motocross place. You know, there's plenty of people that race and do trials and stuff, but you always stuck with the same people. So I always remember just going through and always using different people for targets. And my dad was the first target after, you know, when I was getting better and getting good. Dad was the first target, then my brother. And yeah, that's what I sort of went off. Basically, there was always someone. There was other people as well, but there was always a target. You know, right? I'm finishing 5th here. I want to get in the top 3. So you get to 3rd, and then you're like, right, and now I need to win. And my whole career have been like that, just, you know, gauging off people and just chipping away and getting like that. And I think whether that's at clubman level or schoolboy level or world championship level, it's never changed. It's always been that same thing, but you just go up a level, start again, up a level, start again. And that's how it's been. So I don't think there was a defined moment for me in trials, but then enduros there was. So I did trials. So I won British Schoolboy Championship. I started doing that quite late on. Started winning a couple of rounds at that, but then we didn't have the budget or money to go and do all the rounds. So then I think 92 it would have been. So I was like 13, 14. I would have won the British Trials Championship schoolboy that year and had a DNF. Bike broke at the second round, and that cocked that up. But I think I won more rounds than everyone else. And so trials was always a thing for me then. It was growing up was trials. I want to be world trials champion. And you'd look at Jody Tarras and Mark Colomer and them. They were the guys that I looked up to back then. And then my brother did the 6-day enduro in 95. Someone in the Isle of Man, he had a Manx team and like club team, and one of the guys was like, "Oh, we need a rider. Would you be keen to do it?" And June was like, "Oh, yeah, that'd be quite good crack." So he went and did that. I went and watched with my mum and dad, and I got bit by it. Then that was when I got bit by the enduro bug.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. And so, like, what did your dad was a trials guy? What did he think about when you wanted to like leave the trials behind and get onto enduros?
My dad was the most laid back person ever. He did trials and that. He did do some enduros. Like my uncle used to do enduros a lot. And my dad did some, he'd borrow a bike of someone, or in the end, he bought an old Husky and you'd go and do the odd enduro. I think they enjoyed it. He was never super fast, but he always did well because he was really steady and he was good in the difficult stuff, obviously, coming from trials. So,
Yeah.
where I was a kid, I used to race around on a TY80, like it was a motocross bike, flat out everywhere. Like I probably did more racing around on that than trials. And he used to bollock me all the time. You want to blow that bloody thing up? And I was just flat out everywhere on this TY80. So I always had the bug for going fast. So I think when June started enduros, my brother, I watched that and I thought, oh, this looks ace. It was like car rallying. I loved car rallying when I was a kid as well. It was like car rallying, but on a bike. And so he was riding for Yamaha then. He ended up riding for Yamaha in 96 or 97. So I bought an old gas, the TM engine gas off a guy over here that was cheap. Did it up, went to British Championship, was winning the expert class. So they've got the championship class, which my brother was in. He was winning that at that point for Yamaha. I was on this old gas and the thing was dropping to bits around me, but I was winning. I was leading the experts on it. And then I think it broke down the first day. Second day I won. And then the following year, I did another British Championship at the end of it. So I won the British Trials Expert Championship class in 96. And after that, there was another British Enduro. So I borrowed June's motocross bike, so a YZ 250, and went to that and smoked everyone in the expert class again. But I was second behind him in the main class, in the championship class on times. So I knew then. I always used June, my brother, as a gauge. I was always like, I've beat him at everything I've done. And at that point, he was winning British Enduro Championship. I think he was sixth. I think he was sixth in Italy in the 6th day and was winning tests and stuff. So he was obviously quick and he was good. And I just knew in my head that I could beat him. So that was when it changed. And so for 98, I felt like with trials, I did 90, I think 97, I did the main British Championship. At the time, there was like 10 people in it. It was so extreme. It was so difficult. You had like Lampkin, Jarvis, Colley, a few of the lads, and I was maybe a 6th place rider, 7th place rider on a good day in the main class. I was just having big crashes and you were smashing bikes up. It was too extreme. It was like you had to be doing it every single day to compete. And I was working as a car mechanic, so the enduro thing was a lot more tempting because I knew I could do well at it as well. I knew I was better at that than I would be at trials. So I ended up, I think end of 97, I won that British Championship in the expert class. And then TM come to me and said, oh, we'll give you a ride for 98. Anyway, it sounded good. And then the reality of it was not good. So I had a bike and then I was like, one blew up over the winter and they gave me a big bill for all the parts that they said was going to be free parts. And then the practice bike was it might be 2 new bikes, and the practice bike they sent me was an old knacker. So we ended up giving them bikes back, and I bought a Yamaha. I bought my brother's motocross bike, and so I'm just on a race that. Went to the first, so this is 98, went to the first British Enduro. My brother crashed out and broke a load of ribs. So that was him out. I would have won the event overall, and then Rob Sarton was British champion at the time, and I followed Rob. I think I was scared to pass him because he was a British champion at the time, and I
Yeah.
was this new kid that didn't even know. I didn't even know what I was doing. I didn't know how to work a time card properly. I was like, and I thought he's not going that quick because I just thought I'll go flat out on the checkpoints. I would just go as fast as I could all day, and I was fit enough to be able to do that. And I would get there on time then, and I just had to wait until my time came up. So I got stuck behind Rob and followed him, and we ended up losing a minute. And I was so pissed off. I was like, I've just followed the British champion, lost time because he was riding that slow, and it's cocked me day up. So after that, I just pinned it, and I didn't care if I knocked him out of the way or knocked someone out of the way or rode over them. I didn't care. So that championship that year, that was my first year in enduros, and I ended up started to win races. We got to the Hafren in Wales, which was like torrential rain. There was massive flash floods at that. Rob Sarton's bike ended up getting washed away, going through this river, like a little stream. They found it about a week later, about 8 miles downstream. Me and AD Smith, my bike got dropped in the water, and we got it out, and I started up, and the reeds flew out the airbox. So that was that. It was still run. It was still running, but it was like the reeds were snapped and shot out into the air.
Okay, yeah.
I got it back. So I got it back. They said, "Oh, we're cancelling the event because it was just carnage." So we got back to the paddock. They said, "Oh yeah, we're cancelling the event, scrapping it." So me and Dad, we thought, "Oh, we'll get the early ferry back to Isle of Man." So we jumped in the van, flat out up to the ferry port. Got on the ferry. Well, just when we got to the ferry, they said, "Oh, they didn't scrap it in the end. They ended up running another special test."
Oh,
So that cocked me up. That was like a DNF. So I was gonna protest it, and then Yamaha stopped me from protesting it because AD Smith won it, and Rob Sarton's bike went floating down the river. So it put Yamaha into the lead of the series. So anyway, after that event, I think I won every event left, and it come down to the last round, and I won that, and AD ended up getting enough points. So I think I lost out by like 2 or 3 points, and that was my first full year. But in reality, I should have won it with that cock up there. So, but I think that taught me a big lesson, and it taught me not to trust anyone and just do your own thing and freaking race as hard as you could. And that's what I did for the next 20 odd years after it. And yeah, so after that, I was pretty much, I don't think I got beat then in British Championship until 2016. Any Brit round that I did up until then, I might have lost a day, maybe 1 or 2 days in all that time. It was mental. So, yeah, I was very quick. I had to learn quick. End of 98 was the 6th day in Australia, and I got asked to do that. Yamaha wanted me to do it, the British team, and everything had happened that quick, Steve, that I sort of needed to I needed to take a breather because I'd gone from being an also ran in trials to like this new sensation in enduros, like come from nowhere from trials and started beating everyone in enduros. And like Rob was like one of the top world guys at that time. AD was a good rider. I'd done the world championship in Scotland, in Melville, which was absolute mud again, mud fest. I was the last bike on the track. That was 98. I was the last bike on the track, and there was bikes everywhere. There was people getting stuck, and I cleaned it. There was, I think, 3 people cleaned the entire 2 days, and I was one of them. And I was the last bike on track. So the track was destroyed when I was on it, and that still probably stands out to me as one of my best rides ever. I think I won the juniors by like 20 minutes or something like that, and I was third outright. So everyone in the world championship, and I ended up third. And I was the last bike on the track, which made it way worse. The tests were knackered, the track was destroyed, and so that, when you asked before, that was the defining moment, I think, where I thought I'm quite good at this, and I can
Mm.
you know, I can end up having a good career out of this if I work hard at it, you know. Obviously that was 98. And I never looked back after that, just, you know, hard work and dedication.
Yeah. Early days, was your training mostly just riding a lot?
Yeah, my whole career has just been that. Like
Yeah.
people wouldn't believe me that I never went to a gym. Um, Growing up, we just rode BMXs. We'd ride a motorbike once a week if we were lucky. If you know, Dad and his mates were going out, we had to beg. I begged to go riding because I loved it. And I was like, "Can we go on the bikes? Can we go on the bikes?" And they're like, "Oh, we're not going out this weekend," and I'd be gutted. But we just lived. We just lived on BMXs, and cycle trials was my big thing. I loved trials, push bikes, doing that. Mountain bikes weren't really a thing at that time. It was all BMXs. Um, and yeah, we just lived and breathed it. So we were really fit. Um, I never felt like I had to train. I just felt when I got on the motorbike, I didn't get tired. I felt good. Um, I think a lot of it, you know, when I started World Championship, like I was like, well, why do I need to go to a gym? I don't even get tired. I'm riding a bike, can ride it for 8 hours a day, and I feel like brand new. So a lot of it, and it still is. If you're happy with what you're doing and you're training, like I rode and rode and rode, I was riding every day. Um, so I didn't need to go to a gym. And then the only time I contemplated it later on is when you start listening to people and you think, oh, maybe I need to go to a gym, and or maybe I need to go cycling because everyone's obsessed with cycling. So I never got into that. I just did my own thing. I rode my bikes. I rode sand a lot, you know, where 5 mile for 3 mile from my house is where I've spent most of the time riding over my career, which deep sand, rough as anything. So I just figured riding out there anywhere else felt easy. So I would ride down there
Yeah.
5, 6 days a week. And I would do training, I would ride, do whatever I was doing. And then I would stay there for another 3 hours playing around, just messing. So I just rode every day, all day. And I didn't even think about it. I never looked at it as a job. I just loved riding my bike and thought, "Fucking hell, I'm lucky here. I can do what I want to do. Love doing what I'm doing. Someone's paying for me fuel, and I'm just riding." So I didn't really ever have a big desire or a need to go in a gym until the last few years.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as you get older, obviously, like now, kids and work and everything else life throws at you. Um, I can't go out riding every day, and what am I, 45 now? So your body can't take riding every day like it used to. You know, if I rode 5 days a week or 4 days a week now, I'd be crippled. You know, your body can't take it.
Yeah.
So now I've got a lad who was British mountain bike champion, same age as me, and he just helps us do a bit of rowing, bit of cycling, nothing major, and then I ride the bike when I can, like, you know, a couple of days a week, probably max. Um, and this year, I obviously had my second hip done in January, so I think I had 10 weeks, and I went to the first British cross country round on the Cowie. Um, and rode probably one of the best I've rode in years. Felt fit as a fiddle. Did 3 hours 20 minutes. So we'll get an extra lap in. So I did 3 hours 20 and felt brand new at the end of it. So I'm like, well, what he's doing is working for me. Um,
Yeah.
Girlfriend's got me on a bit more healthy diet. Like my diet was never healthy. I just eat what I want to eat, and that was that. You know, I don't like veg that much, and so I just live on steaks and chips and whatever. So, you know, there's no science behind what I ever did. It was just I enjoy what I eat and work hard.
Yeah.
But now it's different. Obviously, in your 40s,
Catches
it's
up with you a bit, doesn't it?
yeah, it does catch up with you. And when you're injured, you know, like I was texting Elliot saying I feel like I need to do more. You know, and the more training you do, the more you want to do. And he was like, "Nah, just trust me." You know, he said, "You need to rest." today and tomorrow and not do much, and then go and ride on Thursday, and then Friday maybe do a short cycle. So I've just trusted what he's saying, and it works. And it's like he's the same situation. He's the same age as me. He's got kids. He's limited to what time he can put into training. So it works. So I've just been doing that, enjoying myself, and yeah, it's been great. So it's the whole training thing. I think I say to people, whatever makes you feel good and makes you feel ready at race weekend. Some people need to go and cycle 100-mile a week, or need to go in a gym for 8 hours a week, to feel like they've done something. So mentally they're in the right place to go and race. I didn't need that. I was really lucky, I guess. I didn't need that. I just needed to go and ride my bike and have fun and turn up at a race. And I didn't even think about it. I just knew that I was the fittest guy there. And after 3 hours, I'd be standing stronger than what the other guys were. So I was lucky, I guess.
Yeah, awesome. So when did you first get into like world enduro from the British into the worlds?
So that first one was 1998 in Scotland.
Yep.
Didn't even know much about it. Done a couple. I think I'd done one British Championship up until then, or two. And everyone said, "Oh, you should go and do the World Championship in Scotland," And I was like, "Oh, all right." So I did that, won that, and then we went to the first abroad one was Spain. Well, Scotland could have been the end of '97 even. I can't even, maybe '97, but anyway, 90. I went to Spain then, so that was the first trip out of the UK.
What sort of
to my team.
support did you have for that? Obviously it gets expensive when you go on overseas to race.
I was an apprentice engineer, so I was getting like 40 quid a week.
Yeah.
Then I ended up riding for Yamaha. So I ended up in '98. My brother got injured at the first round of the British Championship, and then he had met his missus then, bought a house, and basically he was like, he was never that competitive, Drew, and he was like, loves riding bikes, but wasn't that bothered about it. He would rather be in a workshop all day up to his elbows in grease and shit, working on bikes. So I ended up taking his ride. The Yamaha were like, "Oh, if you don't want to ride, we'll give it to your brother." And he was like, "Yeah." So I basically took all his bikes. I took his bikes and kit and everything.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. And one of the injuries he got was when I T-boned him. I borrowed him. That was before that started the whole chain of events. I borrowed his practice bike for motocross. He was on a new 400 Yam when they come out. And it was my first time I could have beat him properly in the motocross. And I was like battling with him anyway. Last corner, and I wiped him out accidentally on purpose and broke all his ribs. He had a big pisser. So that was the chain reaction. Then he crashed again. He crashed again in the first British Championship in '98 and did all his ribs again. He wasn't healed properly. And I stole his ride and everything. So yeah, that was how it was. That was me. I was like, I didn't care. I was getting to the top whatever way that I could, and he was sort of over it anyway, I guess. But yeah, so went to Spain. So that was my teammate. So I went halves with him. Yamaha helped me. I was getting a bit of bonus of Yamaha. I was getting bikes and spares and everything. So Jason Fraser, me teammate with Yamaha, he was going out. So I drove down to him in Devon, Cornwall. Got the ferry over to Spain with him and went and did that. And I think I finished second in that. That was World Juniors again. Finished second in the junior class behind a Spanish lad. So again, that was my first time on hard pack, proper sort of blue groove, quite hot weather. So then I just did the odd World Championship then. I think start of '99. I went to the first round in Italy. The marshal ran across the track in front of me. I swerved to miss him, crashed, broke my collarbone. So that was the first special test of the weekend. So that all the way to Spain, Italy, and that happened. So I missed the next round in France, and I missed another one, and then came back in Finland and Sweden, and smoked everyone. I missed. I think you dropped 2 rounds at that then. So I ended up second in the World Juniors, but I was by far the quickest rider at that point. Did well, and then at that point I still had another year in the juniors, or even 2 years in the juniors. That was 99, and I just thought. So I had some offers then. Yamaha, Italy, give me an offer. Honda give me an offer, and KTM give me an offer. And I wanted to stay with Yamaha. They had a good team in World Championship. I'd been with Yamaha from the start, so I was like, I'd like to stay in the Yamaha. So I went straight into the World Championship in 2000 in the 250 class. So in with all the big boys, and finished second in the world in 2000, 2001, 2002. So second for, I think, them 3 years on the bounce. Started winning races. When it was muddy, I'd clear.
Who was beating you? Who was beating you in those years? Who was the rival that was getting you?
Salmon. You are. Salmon beat me first, and then he went to the 4-stroke. And at that time there was 5 classes, so you had your 125, 252 stroke, 400, 500 class, and what else was a 254 stroke class as well. So they had 5 classes then. So I was 252 stroke, but they were at that point, Juha and myself were winning overall. We were winning like the overall world championship. So it was good. And then Juha moved, and then Samuli beat me. And then I went to it was same team, but I rode a 4-stroke in the Italian championship and cleaned up on it. Let's see. I rode a 450 Yamaha, or 426, it might have been even then, in an Italian round, and cleaned up on it. And I thought, I love this thing. This suits me really well. Like, big guy, got on this Yamaha 4-stroke and just gelled with it. So for 2003, they said, do you want to ride a 4-stroke? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. So Juha was going to the 500 class on a 525 KTM. So I wanted to ride a 450 Yamaha in the 450 class. And Yamaha were like, no, Mario Rinaldi's riding that. And I said, well, I can beat Mario. I'm better than him. I want to ride the 450 class. No, you're going to have a Rinaldi Yamaha like Stefan Everts is riding in the motocross. We're building a 500 Yamaha. And I was like, all right. So I'd like to try it because I might not like it. Oh, no, you'll love it. It's a proper bike, and Rinaldi are building it and stuff like this. So I got this 500 Yamaha and got the thing. It felt flat. So it felt heavy and it felt flat. And I was like, I'm not sure this thing's that good. Anyway, I went to the first World Championship round, nearly beat Salminen on it, finished second. And I was like, blooming heck. And everyone was like shocked. We were like, oh, this lad on this Yamaha is fighting with KTM on this one-off bike that they've built. Anyway, I went home and the thing blew up on my practice bike. And we found a problem with it, with the cam chain tensioner was the wrong length because the cylinder had been lifted up on it because it was longer stroke and a bigger piston. So I got an old bit of aluminium off her old alley number plate and cut a bit out of it and bent it in, jammed it in the engine and put the rubber into it to space it out, and it worked. Anyway, the Italians were like, no, we have to change something. So they changed something on the bike. And after that, it was crap. I remember going to Leo Vinci, we used their exhausts, and Peter Bergval's 250 Yamaha 4-stroke, they just came out. It was on the dyno and it's 38 horsepower. They put my 500 on the dyno and it's 36. And I said, that's 36 horsepower. Says, the 250's got 2 horsepower more than my 500. In a typical Italian fashion, you're like, no problem. It's just wheel spinning on the dyno. And I said, it's not wheel spinning. It had a slick tire on it. I was watching it and I was like, it's not wheel spinning. Yeah, it's got a lot of power, this bike. Anyway, I was like, whatever. After that, after the world rounds after that, the thing was a nightmare. Everything kept breaking on it. It was shit. It was on par with the BMW for how shit it was. So I never got beat by any of my teammates. I did that year. The bike broke at the last round in Sweden, and I went from second in the world to fourth. But I was fourth or fifth overall, so I still had a goodish year considering.
Yeah.
I had the speed still. And then I went home. I bought a 450 Yamaha. I went and did the last few rounds of the British Championship, and I'd rode the 500 all season at home as well. And I was winning on it, but I wasn't winning by what I normally would do. And then I got a 450 Yamaha, went to the next few British Championship rounds on that and dominated on it. The thing was ace. And I was like, I would have been 100%, I would have been world champion in 2003 if I'd rode a 450 Yamaha. Without a doubt in my mind, I would have won. So that really then, that was a defining moment where I was like, right, I need to get on a bike I can win on now because I'm good enough to win. The team didn't trust in me and just didn't. It was always they wanted the Italian rider to be better. They didn't want me to beat them, even though we were in the same team. So they didn't want to renew my contract, even though I was the highest placed Yamaha rider in the world that year. So I got offered then so I didn't even know. I thought that might be the whole dream over. I might be going back to working for my dad as a car mechanic. I didn't know. And then Kurt Nickel called me and offered me a Husaberg, factory Husaberg. Husabergs were good back then, but they were quite temperamental. So I flew to Sweden, jumped on this big Husaberg 500 four-stroke, rode it and absolutely loved the thing. I thought, this bike's a million times better than that Yamaha I've ridden. But I was very wary of the thing breaking on me.
Yeah.
And I wasn't that hard on bikes, but I was just, I knew in my mind I needed a good year. I needed to go out on a bike that could win or be in the top 3 and not have any mechanical issues. So I said to Kurt, I said, thanks, but I'm going to decline it. And I had a Honda offer as well. I declined that and ended up riding. So Julian Stevens, who ended up being a very pivotal person in my career, Julian, he'd mechanic for Paul Ed and for KTM, for the factory team. He set up a new business in England called Triple D Motorsport. So he opened a shop, KTM dealership, and he said, right, I want you to do World Championship for me. We've got backing of KTM UK. So KTM UK said they'll pay me 20 grand a year. I'm on a 525 KTM on a standard bike. They'll give us whatever parts budget. So I agreed with Julian. So I would have been on biggish money at Husaberg. Back then, probably 60 grand, I would say, minimum, maybe more. And I went for 20 grand of Julian with a totally unknown team. And I was injured that winter, so I had an operation done I had an ingrown hair in my back. So I had that cut out. So I didn't ride a bike for 12 or 13 weeks. I'd not even ridden a KTM in my life, not even been on one. So I was scared. I was like, I love the Yamaha, rode that well. And we're going to get on a KTM. And KTM weren't like they are now. Back then, you were like, they were a little temperamental, and some people hated them, some people loved them. So I got on this 525 KTM, scared shitless to get on it and ride it. And I jumped on it and I just thought, this thing's unbelievable. It's so good. And yeah, like everyone knows, I jumped on that 500 and I ended up winning in 2004. Ended up seconds, thirds early on in the year, got the bike dialed in, got confidence back because I had no confidence at the start of that year. The Italians had taken every ounce of confidence I had. And then by the end of the season, I was winning.
Mm.
I was pissed off with finishing second. Like, so Samuliero was winning that year and I would beat him. And then, but it was usually when it was raining or the weather was a bit iffy, that's when I would always come into my own and win. When it was hard packed dry, he would always have the edge on me. And I was like, I remember saying to Dougie Lampkin, I said, Doug, I said, what do I need to do to win? I'm like that close, but I'm keep coming second. And I said, it's really, really pissing me off now. I hate finishing second. And I should have been happy with second still, but which I was, but I wanted to win.
Yeah.
So then the factory team, Kurt, got on to me and says, listen, we want you in the factory team for 2005. This is what you'll get. And I was like, yeah. So, and Kurt was in charge of the whole KTM thing then, which was ace. He was brilliant.
Yeah.
So I remember testing the factory bike before the last round in Germany, and it wasn't that much different to my bike, but it was just a little bit better everywhere, easier to ride. I jumped on it, and I was like, this thing's unreal. I don't even want to ride my bike in the race. I had to jump back on mine for the race. So and then I won, ended up winning both days in Germany on my bike. And then, yeah, that winter we went testing a little bit with KTM. But honestly, I didn't feel like I did anything different over that winter to what I ever did. I just rode like normally, went testing with the team a couple of times, and then I went and did the Enduro in Italy on a 2-stroke. Smoked everyone at that. Went to Hell's Gate in Italy. That was a new event. Smoked everyone in that. Went to Spain to Ivan Cervantes' house. Went training with him in Spain. Had a week with him. Come home. Walked into the house, and then mum and dad were there, and they said, "Oh, we need to speak to you about something." And sat down and told me dad had terminal cancer, and he was like a month or 2 months max left. So I got back from highlight of my career so far, winning these big extreme races and stuff, to getting home and being told that the main influence in my life was, bollocks. So that was really hard. That was horrible. It was a massive thing to try and swallow. So then I think that was probably the kick up, the last sort of piece of the puzzle, the kick up the arse I needed to right now it's time to win. There's no excuse now. I've got everything I need. I've matured. I've got the confidence, and yeah. And then so that was February. That happened in February. So I think, dog just come in.
That's all right.
Yeah, so that was February. So then went to the World Championship. His big worry that was I would lose a plot when he died. I would lose the head and quit racing and thing. But it actually went the other way with me. I just got my head down. I just worked and worked and worked and didn't even come up for air. I just raced and rode every week. Went to a race there, went to a race there. Do you want to come to Mexico and do a race? Yeah, that'll do. I'll come there. I'll jump on a plane and go. And I just raced for them years. And I got to, that was February. I got to May. He came and watched the race in Italy in May, and he was getting pretty ill by then. So he lasted longer than what they'd said. I dominated that event. And then I think he watched TT, got TT week out, and then just after TT he died. He wanted, I think he kept going so he could see the TT one last time. And he died middle of June. And I was World Championship round the following weekend after he died. So that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, was go and try and get your race head on. Go to that. I won it. I struggled the first day a lot, and I ended up winning it just. And then after that, I was grand. Once I got that day out of the way, I was good. And like I say, I just drove and worked hard. So that was 05. Won the World Championship first time. Lost one day all year in Finland to my teammate. Went to the 6 days in Slovakia, won overall there. And that was, to me, that was the big one. To like growing up with the TT. The 6 day Enduro was like the TT to me. That was a big old event, real prestigious. That was the race that I thought, this is like the Isle of Man TT, and I went there to win it, and that was that. And it was hard. Different start times with people. Like I remember I had a couple 2 or 3 minute lead in the event overall from Stefan Merriman, and the final motocross, mine was the last race today, and it was spitting with rain. And I thought, if this rains, I'm knackered. You know, the race is going to be 5-6 minutes slower in the wet than it is in the dry. And that's what comes down to in the 6 day. You're like, no. So anyway, luckily for me, it spat with rain, but it didn't turn into much. Ended up winning. So that was a massive relief. That was more of a relief, I think, than the World Championship winning the 6 day. That was one box I wanted to tick. And after that, I just went into cruise control. I was like, I've won everything. I've won more than I've ever thought. And this was the end of 05. More than I ever set out to do or ever thought that I could do. And then the pressure was off after that. My dad never seen me win the World Championship, but I think he knew that I was going to, you know, and I was, because I'd had such a big lead by then, but you just never know. But I think he knew that was going to. So that was hard, but at the same time, nothing you can do. And then 06, I just went into a mission. I was like, what do you call it? Tunnel vision.
Yeah.
And I just raced, and I was having fun doing it. Had no pressure on my shoulders. And when that happens, you just get, like it did, it just barrel rolled into more and more and more. And then I won every event. I think I'm still the only person ever to win every day of the World Enduro Championship in a season. And I won all the indoors. I went to America and did some indoors. There was Erzberg. I won that both years. I got into a point, and I say it to people now, I don't want to sound cocky or thing, but I knew, and I don't think this would happen to many people, like maybe Carmichael, Bubba has had this same thing, maybe a couple of other people, but I don't think there's many people in the world that have ever had a situation where I knew when I turned up to the race, a World Championship race, that I'd won it already. I knew when I got there that I was going to win it, and there was nothing. There was not even a mechanical problem. I just knew that when I turned up to that race, I was going to enjoy it, smoke everyone, and go to the next race. And that's how it was. And looking back, it was an incredible position to be in. You know, with your head. I could go to Erzberg. I knew I was going to win that. I'd go any race that I went to, pretty much. I was like, I'm going to win it. And I think I could have had 4 or 5 years of that domination if I'd stayed in Europe, because everything, I just knew that I was better than all the other guys. I had the right bike, had the right tools, the right team. Everything just fitted together like that, and you could win. So then Kurt asked me, he said, "Oh, do you fancy?" Because Salman had gone to America at that point, and he said, "Would you like to race in America?" And I was like, "I'd love to race in America." My whole thing. So I nearly had a ride in the US in 2001 with Suzuki or Cowie. I was going to jump straight to America and not even do World, but in my brain, my whole thing from when I was, I don't know, young, was to win the World Championship and then go to America and beat the Yanks. So I'd won 2 back-to-back World Championships, which I was like, that'll do me. I don't need to win anymore. I've put myself in. I'm the quickest guy there. So Kurt asked me about the GNCC thing, and I didn't even think about it. I just said, yeah. I didn't ask about money. I asked about nothing. I just said, yeah, I'll do it. And then, yeah, I went, obviously, for 2007. I went Went there, broke my hand about the week before the first round, smashed my hand on a wooden post in a race. Went to the first round, finished second, but injured on a 2-stroke KTM, which everyone was on a 2-stroke back then in GNCC, and I was like,
Yeah.
I don't like this bike. I want to be on my 4-stroke. And the only guy that was on a 4-stroke was Wibley. Paul Wibley was on one and doing good. So second round, my hand was agony. It was hard pack. I couldn't hold on the handlebars. I rode with my hand that way doing the clutch. I couldn't hold on that way with my hand, so I was held up.
Jeez.
I finished like 18th or something. I struggled like mad, but I finished 18th overall. And I said to Kurt, I said, I don't want to ride that bike anymore either. I said, I hate it. It's like a supercross bike. I said, it's got no bottom end in it. I said, it's what you rode. And I said, I hate it. I said, can I have exactly the same bikes I had for World Championship, me 500, but a 450, bit easier, bit lighter. And he said, yeah, no worries. So I went to the third round. I think there was like a 3-week gap between round 2 and 3. So my hand wasn't 100%, but it was a lot better. Got to round 3 on the 4-stroke and had a 5-minute lead. Bike stopped. And I was like, you're joking. Anyway, ended up getting back to 4th, I think. Ended up like way down, lost a load of time. Got the bike going. It was a filler cap breather, the big tanks that had got blocked. So
yeah.
And then ran out of fuel. So it did that, got it going. Then it ran out of fuel because it used so much being so rich. Got going. Ended up last corner or 2 corners from the end. I was in 5th and Charlie Mullins was in front of me. And I come down the inside of him, took the front end, wiped him out. I stayed on and got 4th. So they weren't happy about that. But I was like, listen, I don't give a shit. I'm here to win, not to. At any point that I can get. I'd had a bad start. So yeah, he didn't like that. I don't think he spoke to me until I announced I was leaving America, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, it's been such a pleasure to race you." Never spoke to me in 2 years, but that's how it was. I was there. I was there to do a job for KTM and to win. So I wasn't going to get flustered over, knocking someone off and then them getting butthurt over it. It's just how it was. So, so then after that race, I won my first race. I think round 4 I won in South Carolina. And then it was just an up and down year. I'd get on a roll, I'd start winning, then the bike would break down. And I had a mechanic, a young American mechanic who, lovely guy, still speak to him now, I get on with him well. But at that time, he didn't have the credentials to be doing the job he was doing. And he would make mistakes. And like the last straw was I'd got a championship lead, was leading another round, and my radiator fell off and ripped the hoses off. And I think I again had a 4 or 5 minute lead, had a mile or 2 miles to go in the race, bike seized. So I pushed the bike over a mile to the finish. And then I rang Kurt up and I just said, listen, I'm not having this. I said, I'll do the bike myself. I said, I don't want a mechanic. I've always done my own bikes. I'll do the bike myself. And he said, what if we get Timo over from the factory, who was a mate of mine and one of the main engine guys at the factory, Finnish lad. I said, yeah, perfect. I'll, if you don't get Timo, that's good. So Timo come over and we cleaned up. Once he come and worked on the bike, we won the last few rounds, won the championship. And then went back to the indoors, won the World Indoor Championship. And then I think the US one, I won that indoors. And then for 08 was a new bike. So I won the GNCC Championship. New model of bike came out, which I never liked because you had to start from scratch again. And the new bike was completely different. So Antti, who's still a KTM team manager, he ordered up so in Europe we had the EXC, which is I think you guys get it, the XC, or the Americans is XCW.
Yeah.
Then you have the XC, which is basically the motocross bike with a 18-inch wheel on it, a big fuel tank.
Yeah.
So Antti had ordered up XCs, which was a new twin cam engine. So I jumped on it. I says, "Oh, I didn't really want one of these. I wanted the Enduro bike. Oh no, this will be much better." And I was like, so I went and rode it, and I said, "I'm not riding that. Too much power in it. It's like a motocross bike," and I didn't like that. I've always liked quite a smooth, easy bike to ride. So I said, "What are the guys using in World Championship? What's you are? What's Samula using?" "Oh, they're using the Enduro bike." And so the guy that always done my engines at KTM was a guy called Kempi, old Finnish guy. Love the old Jägermeister, knock that in him. And I think he built most of the engines pissed. But old school, every title I won for KTM was with his engine.
Mm.
And I think a lot of the world motocross guys that won championships were with his engine. So I rang Kempi up and I said, "Kempi, how's this new bike?" "Yeah, the engine is shit. They test it on the asphalt. They only did the test, but he said, I'll make it good. Don't worry. This engine can be good." But he said, basically, he said, "You're better with that bike than the motocross bike," because that was also that had problems. So I like the bike to ride. To jump on the bike, it was lovely. Some things were better than the old bike. Some things weren't. But we had a good bike. But I went to Florida and I couldn't keep a clutch in it. And I'm easy on clutches, but they put this new clutch in on this KTM in 08, and it was like a road bike clutch. It'd fry itself with the hot weather. So we were in Florida and we were like, "Oh, shit." And they were panicking. They were like, "Oh, these clutches aren't going to last." So Kempi said, "David, you're just going to have to go really easy in the first 2 rounds on it," because you had Florida and Georgia in 4 days with each other. He said, "Just take it easy, get some points, and then the 3rd round you'll have a full new clutch for the bike." Like Hinton were making something for it, which was like the old clutch was. So I went to Florida, won, took it steady, but won. Went to Georgia. What happened there? I never won that race. Finished like 3rd or 2nd or something like that. Never won that race. Didn't like the track. Didn't suit me. But we got through the races with the championship lead. And then we got to the 3rd round, which was my favourite track, with a new clutch and everything.
What track was that?
North Carolina. It was at a place. It was where I broke down the year before when I got on the 4-stroke, and the bike broke down when I had a lead. So 2008, I cleaned up there. The bike was good, and I had no worry about the clutch going on it. And then that year was just, I had a few little mishaps here and there, but we had a good year. So I won the championship with 3 rounds to go.
Yeah.
And in that time, so KTM at that time, so I was still winning everything for them. I'd won more for KTM than any other rider since 2001 or something like that. I'd won more events, more titles, and I'd give us all a pay cut. At that time, they were putting a load of money into MotoGP with Kenny Roberts' team. So we were getting, obviously, Enduros with the big selling. That's what KTM was selling the most of, was off-road bikes. And then we were getting penalised for it. So this is when BMW come about and the whole BM thing. They were pumping millions into it, and they come after me. They come after Salman, and they come after Tarkala. And I wasn't sick of winning, but I don't think you ever get sick of winning. But I wanted a new challenge. So I knew I was going to go back to the World Championship, and then BM were throwing big money around. They had this project that looked ace on paper. Load of the engineers and technical people went from KTM to BM. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. Freaking go and sign it. And
Yeah.
it was on the condition on mine that they had a winning. The bike was, we could change anything on the bike to make it win, you know. And I'd always dreamed of being in development. I'd always been into development and working on bikes and testing things. I loved it. Did loads of tire testing with KTM for Metzeler over the years, and I just loved making stuff better. So the BM thing on paper was great. The reality, as everyone knows, wasn't. It was an absolute shit show.
Yeah.
But the bike, you know, it still bothers me to this day that they could have made it was a disaster, and we were getting the blame for it. And I was like, and the Superbike team was the same. They were in the same building. They were having the same issues, but at least they copied a Japanese bike. And the team manager wanted me to go to Harris in the UK and get a chassis made for it. And I was like, no, it's not up to me. I'm going to get in trouble if I did that. That's up to you. You're the team manager. And 6 months in, I was on big money. I was on big bonuses. We were getting big traveling expenses. You got BM cars given to you. It was everything that some kid would dream about, but it just turned in. Like for me, riding a motorbike is my life. It's my hobby. It's what I enjoy. And not one part of enjoyment riding that BMW. It was like I was to the point where I was almost getting suicidal with it. I hated life. I hated riding it. I went and bought a Honda 450 that winter because we didn't have bikes until February. I went and bought a 450 Honda to get used to a fuel injected bike because that was all new.
Yep.
So I was riding in America a lot over the winter. Had a 450 Honda in America and in the Isle of Man. And I was riding ace. I was probably riding the best I'd ever ridden. I was on this Honda and I was flying on the thing, and people were commenting, friends at home were like, I've never seen you ride this quick before, you're flying. And then I got onto the BM, and I was one of the first people to say something wrong with this. I had a few big crashes on it, and I didn't know why. But the times, I was looking at the times, like everything I've always done training is always on a stopwatch. And I was like, time shit on this. And I'm like, and I spoke to the team manager, oh yeah, but the bike's going to get better, and, waiting for parts. So I just trusted them. Went to the first World Championship, and it was a disaster for everyone. It was like I was riding harder than ever, and we were finishing 7th and 8th. And then we did loads of testing, trying stuff, and it was nothing. And then I went testing in Austria, I think we were. Germany or Austria. I think we were over the border to Austria to an old Grand Prix track. And they tested these new things on the bike, and it was crap. And we had all this stuff. The boys had the stopwatch out, and they were like, how is it? And I just said, it's no different. It's better how it was. It's everything we've tried today has made it worse. And then they said, oh, Salmonen was here riding yesterday, and you're quicker than what he was going yesterday on it. So he said, you're riding good, but they were like, you don't feel good. And I said, no, I feel crap. The bike will not go where I want it to go. I can't get it to where I want to go. It's just a disaster. So he said, oh, we've one more thing to try. And I said, oh, I'll try anything. And he pulled a brand new Carry 450 out of the van. So this is a BM team.
Yeah.
He pulled a brand 450 Carry out of the van and said, do you want to try that? And I was like, yeah. He said, oh, I wouldn't try it. He didn't want to ride it. I said, I'll ride it. On this old motocross track, my first complete lap, I was 8 seconds quicker than I'd gone all day on the BMW on a motocross track. And I rode it until it ran out of fuel. I rode this bike around this track. And after the second lap, I seen Timo, who was a guy that was at KTM with me, and Dirk, who was a team manager of Hurlins and that for the KTM motocross team up until about 2 years ago. So Dirk and Timo, I just seen them out, and when I was going up this hill, I looked over at them and I just seen them shaking their head, laughing, walking back to the truck. So I just carried on riding, and I come in and he said, you don't even need to say anything, David. Freaking unreal. This bike is a pile of shit, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, it is a pile of shit. And they knew that. They all knew that. The team manager knew it. But I don't blame them not for speaking up, because some of them had wives and young kids, and they were getting paid good money, and it wasn't up to them. But I said, right, when I go back and tell him. So there was the big boss guy at BMW, was called Bertie. So I went back to Munich, and I said to Dirk, I said, listen, Dirk, and he spoke to him on the phone on the way back and said, listen, David jumped on the Cowie, and it's like unbelievable how fast he was going. And we got back to the thing, and I just went in, not all guns blazing, but I went in, right, I'm telling him exactly how it is now. And I don't care if they sack me. I don't care what they do. I'm going in and telling them the truth. So I walked in and he said, "Oh, so the Kawasaki was a little bit more stable." I said, "Listen, Bertie," I said, "that Kawasaki is a bog standard bike out of a shop. They've paid $5,000 for it, and I've gone 8 seconds quicker on that on my first lap than what I've done on a factory BMW that you guys are obsessed with saying it's the best bike out there." I said, "It's a pile of shit." And I says, "The sooner you realise that, the better." And I says, "I'm here on a 2 or 3 year contract to win." And I said, "If you guys don't want to win, that's fine. I'll go somewhere else. But if you guys want to win, I'm willing to stay here. Develop an R version. So bring out a prototype or whatever, race, like road bike is like a G450X R or something like that. Bring a race version out." I said, "That bike's fine for the guys that have got a 1200 GS and want to do a bit of trail riding. That 450 is perfect for them." But I said, "For World Enduro," I said, "it's a turd, waste of time." Oh, and he started going mental at me. And I was like, "Well, I'm being honest with you here. We're behind closed doors here. I'm not saying anything bad to anyone about the bike, but I says, you need to take on board what I'm saying because you are thinking the same. Everyone's saying the same thing. And the sooner you realize that, no, we will not spend any more money on this bike. We will not change anything." And I said, "Well, if you're not willing to change the swing arm pivot, the engine rotation goes the wrong way. So when you go to do a wheelie, the front end goes into the ground, and the clutch on the end of the crank. 3 big problems with the bike, and the frame was that pivot on the frame, and the frame was made out of stainless steel. So every time you had some vibration or you did a jump on it, the frame snapped. So and then the gear shaft used to fall off, snap off every race. So you had to take the engine out to change that. So I said, unless you're willing to change this bike so I can go and win on it next year or whatever, I'm out of here." So I rang the management up in America and says, "Listen, I want out." So I got the raft of all that. I was a complete dickhead, and I was this, and I was unfaithful, and because I'd left BMW, they blame me for that. Bike was a disaster. I got the blame for that. So I got accused. Everyone knows that I got accused of pissing on it, but I wouldn't have wasted a freaking sack of piss on the bike. Like that was a big thing that hurt as well. That they accused me of pissing on the bike at a check or something in Enduro, and like anyone knows, you'll stand there next to your bike having a, and that's all that it ever was. That's all I've done. But they were like, "Oh, he threw the bike on the floor and pissed over it." And I said, "Listen, I'd hold my hands up and admit that if I did it, but I didn't do it." And that was everywhere, even when I went back to America. And so people still go on about it now. And I said, if it was on fire, I wouldn't have pissed on it. But just, it got quite nasty, and I was depressed. I was like, I was at the end of my tether with it. I was like, this, I feel like going jumping off a cliff somewhere. It was bad. I was in a really shit place. And then I got out of my contract because I had a clause in it about winning and the bike being competitive, which it clearly wasn't. So I got out. Bertie said to me, "You'll never win another world championship ever again. I'll make sure you'll never win a championship again." And I was like, whatever. Jumped on a Cowie. So when I rode that Cowie, I was like, whoa, this thing's ace. So that was the whole thing. I went home. I had a Honda at home. I went home, bought a Kawasaki. Went to America to the snowshoe GNCC. I got my mate. I said, "Bart, go and buy a Cowie. I'll get some parts for it, and we'll go to snowshoe." And there was 20 grand contingency for winning snowshoe on a Cowie. So that was why I bought a Cowie as well. Bought the Cowie, went and won the snowshoe, won like $22,000. Then Paul Bird, who was a British team manager for the World Superbike Cowie team. Birdie was a friend of mine. Unfortunately, passed away last year. Birdie had the World Superbike team, and he rang me and says, "David, do you want to ride Cowie for us and do World Enduro Championship on it?" And Cowie are fully on board, and you've been racing the Cowie and you seem to like it. And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So we ended up winning the last round in France of the World Championship on the Cowie. Beat the BMW. So that was quite nice. That was give him a good smile when I walked past him.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah. And just on a bike, like again, we didn't do much to it. I think I threw some WP forks in it because I just knew how I was with them. Acro pipe on it, had a Vortex ECU on the bike, and that was pretty much it. And we went there and beat all the factory teams on this pretty standard Cowie 450 motocross bike. And then KTM come knocking again. So I had the option of a Cowie deal, which I did really want to do, but at the same time, there was a hell of a lot of work involved with everything, you know. And KTM come and said, listen, we want you back on our bikes, but it wouldn't be in the factory team straight away. You'd be on a factory bike, but satellite because you left and went to BMW sort of thing. But then, so we can't be seen to put you straight back in the factory team. And I was like, perfect. For me, that's better. I'd rather be on a factory bike in the satellite team.
Yeah.
So I come back to KTM, won the World Championship. Again, on that bike was really good. Went to the last World Superbike race with Cal Crutchlow to give him a hand and watch him. And my old mate Bertie from BMW come walking past, and I said, you're not going to say well done, Bertie, for winning the World Championship. I says, you said I'd never win again, and looks like I've won it. Just really wind me up what he'd said. So that was nice to get that in. Crutchlow was laughing his head off. He was giggling. He was laughing, like going past. And so that made everything good again. That was another little thing, you know. I've seen on one of these that something might have happened 5 years ago or 8 years ago, and I'll remember it, and I'll always get my own back. And I was watching Supercross the other week, and Carmichael was saying the same things. Like, it might be 2 months later or 5 years later, but if someone knocked me off, I'd get them back. It might be years later, but I would T-bone them. I'd get payback, and I'm exactly the same mindset. So that was to get that little dig in. That was the last sort of word on him. That put the BM thing at rest. Then
Closure. Gave you a bit of closure on that.
Closure. Yeah, it was
that
closure.
episode.
And it is petty and it's like thing, but it's funny. And it was good. And Cal's very much like me, like that. He was pissed himself laughing, and he was like, so that was back with KTM. And then that was 2010 was my last good year really for them. They brought the new bike out, which was fuel injected in 11. My hips, I had trouble with my hip in 2010. 2011 went to the first round. Didn't like the bike. Had all sorts of problems with that. Fuel injected. Hurt me hip again, quite bad. And then was just, I thought the bike needs a lot of work. My hip's knackered. I need an operation on them. So I decided to go and get surgery, which was like 10 months. So my thinking was that year was already knackered anyway. Go and get surgery, come in 2012. The bike will be well sorted. I'll come in fit and strong and clean up. And then the two strokes were coming back in the 500 class. 300 two strokes were coming back. The 500 wasn't what it was before with injection on it. Was really snatchy, snappy. It was hard to find grip. I didn't like the chassis. I jumped on my two-stroke, loved it, was going fast on that. But my teammate was on the two-stroke, I was on the 500. I was struggling to get top threes. I was getting seconds, thirds on it, fourths. Said to KTM, listen, I don't feel it 100% yet. I don't feel the bike's that good. It needs development, but no one's willing to come testing with me and do the fuel injection to map it. They were always busy with Ryan Dungey or Cairoli testing. And I was fighting. I was like, so my bike in England, I had a 450 in England. They wouldn't let me ride a 450. I had to ride a 500. In England, I bought a 450, put a Vortex ECU on it, and the thing was ace. Got dialed in. The 500 was harder work because it's a bigger engine. They wouldn't let me run a different ECU, and they wouldn't go testing with me. And again, wanting to win got me in trouble. Like I was journalist would ask me, "Oh, why aren't you winning?" And I said, "The bike's not capable of winning." I'm pushing like mad, and it's not ready to win. So then I get in the shit off KTM like I did with BM, because everyone's saying, "Oh, he said the bike was shit," and I was like, "Well, I didn't really say the bike was shit. I just said I can't win on it. It's not as competitive as what the two-stroke is." So then we had a bit of a meeting with KTM. I came to Italy with my own two-stroke 300 and won. Standard 300 had my forks and shock in it, but engine was completely standard on it. Put my jetting in it and cleaned up, and that proved to myself again, which I needed to. It proved to the team that I was still fast. It was good because I had all my hip surgery done, and I hadn't won a race, hadn't done good in a race since. So I won on the two-stroke, and I was like, I'm still good enough. I'm still good. And but then they wouldn't let me race that bike. I went to Sweden on another two-stroke. It was a factory bike. It was like the one in GNCC. It was like a light switch. Hated it. Finished second or third on that, but didn't enjoy it. And then they said I have to ride the 500 again. So finish the year off, not that great. They wanted me to ride the 500 the following year again, not a two-stroke or not a 450. I wanted to ride the 450. Didn't want me on that. And to me, I was still the best rider that they had. I would say that because I was a rider, but on results and on times, I feel I was still the best rider that the KTM had at that point, but wasn't allowed to ride the bike of choice that I wanted to ride. So we ended up leaving KTM, setting my own team up with Honda. Got a few good sponsors behind me, but basically ended up spending a load of my own money. Which when you look back at it on now, I'm like, blew an absolute fortune doing it. Nearly won the first World Championship round in Argentina. Only lost because a dog ran out in front of me and crashed trying to avoid it, and then ended up second, I think. But still good, 450 Honda motocross bike. Developed it all ourselves, me and a few just good mates. Got a lad that was good at suspension, a lad that was good with ECUs. And then went to the third round in Spain, riding in dust, going about 3 miles an hour, went down a big hole, ripped my thumb back, did that skier's thumb when your thumb comes back and couldn't ride. Tried doing the next round, couldn't ride, missed half of the year with that just niggled on, tried riding, went to Romania, tried riding, couldn't hold on, so just let it heal. Come back for the last round in France, won that event, and then the good old FIM changed the check times, the times of the race. So I got there on time, checked in, and then the FIM guy said, "Why have you checked in for? We've given 8 minutes extra to everyone." And I said, "Well, no one's told my team, no one's told us." "Well, you should have a team manager then, shouldn't you?" And that was his answer. So I protested that, $2,000, protested it, got kicked out, ended up like 12th instead of winning. They cut everything out the second day. So you had one little crappy grass test that was like a motocross track. So I think I finished second or third that day. And that was when I said, that's enough. World Championship Enduro, it's a load of pansies running it. There's nothing hard anymore if it rains. Like the guys that are good wet weather riders, mud riders, were always at a disadvantage because the Spanish, the Italians would always complain if it was muddy and wet and get all the hard stuff taken out of the race. So I'd blown an absolute fortune that year running my own team to go and try and win. And that was enough was enough. So I pulled the plug on it. And yeah, I did think I would still get a good ride, but nah, upset too many people maybe, through whatever. But just, the only thing I was guilty of in my eyes was, I did say some things and I got pissed off, but at the end of the day, you put your life and soul into winning races. And that was the only thing I was guilty of, is wanting to win more than what the team did. And that was the only thing look at it now and I'm like, I wanted to win more than what the guys at KTM did. I wanted to win more at that team. So then I thought I'll go back to what my hobby was, extreme enduro. So I did a bit of a deal with Sherco, which they went big at that time, like the bike. And again, just got promised everything. Nothing came out. I was going to races that were costing $5 or $6 grand. They were supposed to bring a van and a mechanic to the races. There was always an excuse. Went to Erzberg, cost me $6 grand, went through 3 engines, got up to second place on it, and the bike died. And then I called him and he said, oh, the deal was 2,000. I said, yeah, the deal was 2,000, but you were supposed to send a race bike, a van and a mechanic to the races. But I've been doing it all myself. You know, I should have been flying to the race for a few £100 and racing. So I drove to France, brought all the bikes back, said you can have everything back. I'm going to just go and buy my own KTMs and do that. And that's what I did. Just went and bought some KTMs and just went and did some races that I wanted to do. Did the odd World Enduro. Every time I went to a World Enduro for the next 4 or 5 years, I got a podium on a privateer, full privateer bike. So I knew I still had the talent and the pace, but face didn't fit, passport didn't fit. Maybe, you know, it was all about these Italians and Spanish and all the British guys at the time were not getting the help that we needed. So yeah, then I just sort of went and did races where I could. I did British Championship again, beach races, Western, did some extremes, and that was it. Just struggled through really, and sort of got into a bit of no man's land. You know, do I had 3 kids? Do I go and get a normal job now? Just didn't know where I was at.
Yeah. And so you got into training, obviously, training and tours and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
So I was doing, so I was still, obviously, I've never stopped racing. Some people thought I'd retired, but I'd never stopped racing. I was always racing. I'd done the trail tours for years and from training schools, and that got a bit bigger and started doing more of that, which I am now still, you know, and just trying to find a good balance really. And then I got someone come up to me and said, we'll help you with the racing and stuff. So got going a bit again. And then the whole Dakar thing came up as well then, which over the years I'd like Honda had sort of mentioned to me twice, almost promised me twice, like to do the Dakar with them. And then that always fell on its arse because of whatever reason. You know, it was either, well, we need a South American rider, we don't need a British rider, or we need a French rider. So I got promised quite a lot of Honda over the years and nothing ever come to fruition. So the whole Dakar thing, I got offered a Dakar ride when I was with KTM and I turned it down because I was flat out with GNCC and with World Enduro and indoors. And I was enjoying what I was doing at that time. I was like, but the Dakar was always an event. I went testing with them, went really good on the bike. It was always an event where I thought I could go to and do really well at it. But when I was ready to go and do the Dakar, no rides come up, you know, it sort of, that went a bit flat as well. So after years, I was like, sort of got to a place where I'd give up on doing it. I'd sort of accepted I was never going to do the Dakar rally. I'd give up on it. And that was where I was.
Yeah. And so how did it come together? So that's how, it's only like what, about four years ago where you did Dakar?
Yeah, 21. Yeah, 21. So
3 years ago.
So 2018, I did a bit of an ambassador deal with Suzuki. I was riding the gas in Enduros and I was doing Suzuki things. So I was doing beach races and stuff like that on a 450 Suzuki and riding cross country events and enduro on a gasser. So it worked quite well. It was good. then started training for Western Beach Race because I've won that more than anyone else. And I wanted another Western win. So started putting effort into that, broke my back. Just a stupid little crash. Somewhere I've ridden all my life, just hit a rock in the sand and spat me off, broke my back. That was like 12 weeks before Western. So work like mad. Went to the hospital the week of the race. My surgeon, the guy, he was like, I don't want you to race, Dave. It's not healed properly. And I said, I'll just go and have a look. If the track looks all right, I'll just have a steady run round. Ended up finishing was that third or fourth. So I ended up having a good ride considering I hadn't ridden for 12 weeks or 13 weeks. Went good. Went to Skegness Beach Race a couple of weeks later, which is way harder than Western. Todd Kellett won. I caught him near the end. I was literally 100 meters behind him at the finish. Rode really well. Finished second. That's one of the toughest events I've done for years. Did that, and then so I was getting help by a company a little bit then. So he come up to me and says, would you like to, they were helping me a little bit. Would you like to do the Dakar Rally? And I was like, I always love to do the Dakar Rally. And they had a team in the Isle of Man TT at the time and British Superbike. So they had the funding. I think apparently they had the funding. So they were paying a bit of travel expenses for me at the time. So they said, would you like to do the Dakar? And I was like, I've always wanted to do the Dakar, but I've got 3 kids now, and do I want to do it? It's a dangerous event. I said, I'll have to have a think of it, but I'll have a think of it and see if I want to do it. So time was going on, like, I think 8 months, something like that. He kept asking me now and then, and I was like, so I got to about 8 months later, and he asked me again, and I says, I've had a good think about it, and I'd like to do it. His dream, he wanted to win the senior TT with the road race team, and he wanted a rider to do the Dakar and to finish the Dakar. That was all it wanted. Don't have to go and win the Dakar, just go and ride it, steady away, and finish it. So I said, I'd like to do it, but there's a couple of conditions. It says, I need to find a good team to do it with that I trust, and I've got a good bike, and I trust the people working in it. There's no expectation of a result because I'm literally going to go and finish it. That's the whole thing. I'm not going to go fast. I'm not going to go and try and win a stage. I'm just going to go and ride it and finish the event. Yeah, no problem whatsoever. And I says, you've got to pay for everything. Yeah, that's not a problem. All this. So I found a team. I flew to Holland, met Henk on HC Rally team. Met Henk, brilliant guy, perfect for the job. He says, if you start going fast, I'm going to rein you in. He said, you're not going. So he was on the same mindset as me. He said, you come from all you've achieved, you come to the Dakar. And he said, it's completely different. You need to go ride at 40% to finish it. So I got back. I said to Matey, I says, I found a good team here. Right, let's go ahead. If you're wanting to go ahead with it, yeah. So then needed a training bike. Henk sent the bike over, and Matey had to pay for it. Didn't get paid for. I need a new enduro bike. Went and did some road book training in Spain. Paid that myself. Never got my money back, and I was like, something weird's going on here. So I asked him a few times. I says, everything all right? If you don't want to do this or you haven't got the money to do it, say stop now, because I'm starting to put a load of money into this. And before we get too deep in it, we need to stop it. No, it's all right. It's just at the accounts with the factory, with the business, and Claire will get it paid and all this. And I'm like, all right. So anyway, his wife was quite a nasty piece of work, which I hadn't seen it firsthand really, but I'd heard a few things. So I went up there one day and just went absolute psychopathic at me, started screaming and shouting at me. He was crying his eyes out, telling me to stop, and said he's ruining his race team and ruining all his friends and all this lot. And I was just like, what the hell's just happened? So I walked off, went home, was like gobsmacked. I was like, what the hell has just happened? And nothing ever got paid for. So I had a rally bike there, plan on doing the Dakar. Everyone knew I was going to go and do the Dakar. And 6 months before, no sponsor, no money. So I was like, what the hell do I do now? Spoke to a few mates, and then the rally in Spain was coming up, and I had to do that because it was COVID had kicked off. Had to do that to qualify for the Dakar. So, yeah, Phil, who I race with now, Phil was on the phone, and I says, Phil, would you be able to help me out a bit doing this Spanish rally? And he was like, yeah. He said, I'll pay for you to do it. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, told me how much it was, and it was a lot of money. And he was like, yeah, let's do that, and then we'll worry about the Dakar. Let's get you in that. So I went to Spain, did the Rally 2 class, won that, beat some guys that were they were favourite to win, and I went in and won it. And it was more like a Baja, I'd say. It wasn't loads. It had road books, but you didn't have to do loads on the road book. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, so I was trying to do it. Oh, late night. I was trying to do it properly, but I ended up winning it. Got my license for the Dakar. So then the big problem was going home and trying to find 80 grand or 90 grand or whatever it was to do the Dakar.
Yeah.
So, so that was a, in the whole COVID thing, it was just everything went against you to try and do it. So then one of my mates at home said, a few people said, do a GoFundMe. And I was like, don't want to do that. Hate asking people for money, or it's like begging us. And he was like, no, it's not. People will put money in. And the good thing is if you don't get anywhere near enough, you just press a button and everyone gets the money back. They don't lose a penny. So I was quite against it, to be honest. And then a few more people had said, we'll put money in, set one of them up. So I thought, right, nothing to lose, let's do it. So Johnny set it up for me. He was running it, and money started flying in. And I was absolutely gobsmacked, because I think the whole story got around as well of how these two had absolutely shafted me, left me like in a load of debt. Had bikes there, had a van there, stuff, and it was all in my name, and I had to pay for it somehow. So I was at this point where I'm not gonna let them ruin this now. I've got into my head that I'm doing the Dakar. I'm gonna do the Dakar, and they're gonna spoil that for me. And I'm gonna finish the Dakar, and I'm gonna stick a big two fingers up at the both of them. So, so it just went on. The whole money thing started coming in. A couple of companies started coming in. So we ended up getting. I put a bit in myself. We ended up getting enough money to go, which I was gobsmacked with. I really didn't think. And honestly, I could spend 3 hours now talking about how we got to the Dakar. So I still don't know how I got there. The whole COVID thing. I got stuck on the Isle of Man. Jamie McCanny was with me. He was riding for Yamaha on the Dakar. He was in the Isle of Man. And we couldn't get off. The big storm. The ferries were cancelled. The airport was shut anyway on Christmas Day and Boxing Day. We were trying to get a private jet in. A second cousin of mine was the chief of the Isle of Man. He's like the chief minister at the time. So I was calling him up and said, Howard, can you get special permission for a plane to land at 2:00 in the morning to pick us up? And that, yeah, no worries. So we went through all this stuff, people at Christmas parties, and we were like trying to get private jet coming in to pick us up. And then I think it was like the harbour police or something at the end said, no, we're not doing it. Just being awkward. So that knackered that. So we couldn't. So in the end, we waited until the 27th, which was almost too late to get to Dakar. We got on the ferry that morning, winged it, drove it to Stansted Airport, got on a flight to Prague because there was a flight from Prague, a Dakar flight from Prague to Saudi. So we ended up getting to Prague, got to passport control. You're not allowed in the country, all COVID stuff. We're going to send you back in the morning. So we slept in the corridor, and we had to meet this guy at 8 o'clock in the morning. Anyway, we started seeing Dakar people going past because we were in the airport still. So I said, we can't do this. We can't not try. So we just legged it, got to the gate. The woman says, get down there and get on that Dakar flight as quick as you can. Get on it, get your heads down, and don't think. So we end up getting on this flight. Door shut, took off. And somehow, I don't know how the hell we did it to this day, but we ended up getting to Saudi and getting to the car. All the COVID stuff and everything like that. It was a nightmare. It was. Anyway, we got there. Then you've got to have your COVID test when you get there. So you get to Dakar and you might not be able to ride because you might have COVID you might have caught it on the way out. It was just, honestly, it was out of all the Dakars you could possibly do, it was the horrendous one to do. But but we got there, and then it sort of sinks in, doesn't it, what you're going to do?
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, the old COVID time. Yeah, we don't want to talk too much about that. Bad memories, huh?
Yeah.
What you were saying about the GoFundMe, like I can really understand why people wanted to support you, because it gives them a little bit of they feel a little bit of a part of what you're doing. Like I've chipped in for to help people get to the ISDE and things like that.
Same thing. It is. I would agree with you.
A little bit of a part of it. It's like, that's. I mean, I remember going and helping out at a fundraiser to get some guys to the 6 days, and I just chipped in, $100 or whatever, but I helped out with a fundraising event and a few things like that, and that was to get one of the riders to get there was Daniel Sanders, and he ended up outright winning the whole damn thing. So it was like, how cool is that? Like, you just feel that little bit of a part of it. So I can see why people would definitely support a GoFundMe for that. Yeah.
And there was people I know that haven't got 2 pence to rub together. They struggle, they work hard, and they were saying, "Oh, I want to put some money in," and I'm like, "No, it's all right, honestly." And like, I felt bad, but they were like, "No, I want to be a part of it." And you put in, like, they'd stick a £5 in or a £10 or something. You're like, "You don't have to do it, honestly." And they were like, "No, I want to." And then we ended up doing this company come in to help, and we ended up doing all these vlogs and stuff through the Dakar with Billy Ward. And Billy came with me, and he was ace. He was like, he kept me smiling every day, and we had a laugh, and we just enjoyed every second off it. Like, it was brilliant. It was you can't explain it to people, the experience of it all. I could talk about it for hours, but until you get to that event, you have no idea the sheer size and scale of it. And helicopters, planes, it's mad. It's like the TT. It's like the TT, but on an even much bigger scale. Like, so we vlogged it all for that reason, so everyone could follow it, and it was awesome. It went down so well, and it was absolute pleasure. I was up at 3 o'clock every morning, whatever time we had to be up, like ready to go. I was like wired, and the one thing I really dreaded about the Dakar was getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, getting to bed at 9 o'clock at night, getting up at 3 in the morning, and having to ride for 10 or 12 hours. The liaison sections, that's what really put me off the Dakar for years. But somehow got there, and just enjoyed the whole experience. Cruised around, sightseeing, riding stages. Ended up with an Aussie lad riding who was brilliant. We had a right laugh together, and just
Who was that? Was that that would have been like Burgess, was it?
Yeah, Burgess, yeah.
Michael Burgess, yeah.
So he was we had a right laugh, he was ace. And we just like I had to slow him down a few times. He was getting a bit leery out there. He started to get a bit mad and wild. I was like, hell on there. And then he had a crash. A few days from the end, he had a big crash, and that calmed him down. And that hurt him a bit. And I had a crash early on, so I thought this can bite easy. I broke ribs on the second day, and stupid little crash. And just from nothing, just looking at the road book and not looking where I was going. So you learn all the way through. But Burgess was, we had a right crack, and we were all riding together in these little groups every day. And we had problems. We were learning stuff all the time. It was ace. It was like the best riding you could ever do. Riding along, and you're like, "Oh, my neck! Look at them rocks over there." And I come from the Isle of Man, so what is it? 15 mile by 30. You know, that's how small it is here. We were riding in a desert. I don't know what size it would be. But you look that way, and you look that way, and you look that way, and you see nothing for miles. And you're like, you might be full throttle for an hour, and then you start seeing some hills in the distance, and you're just like, this is insane how vast. You know, I still look back now, and I can't believe how big the place was. Like different for you guys, maybe because you're in
we get some spots like that.
You get out in the desert and stuff, but you know, Derby Beach is the only desert I've ever been to, 3 miles from the house. So, you know, I so enjoyed it. It was ace. It was hard. It was mentally, it was hard pulling myself back every day. You know, you want to go and try and win a stage or go and do well and get in the top 10 or whatever. And I just didn't want to let anyone down. It cost a fortune to get there. It was through everyone's help that I got there. And the last thing I wanted to do was crash and do something stupid and then have to wait a whole year more to try and get there again and have another go. So the whole thing was just to go and ride it, steady away, finish it, have a smile on your face. And that's what I did. And it was hard. It was very hard for me to be able to ride that steady and slow and go and ride just to get a finish.
Sounds like though it really sort of ticked maybe one of the last boxes of things you wanted to do. Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like you said, I'd resigned myself never to do it, and for someone to come and open that can again, big can of worms, you know, it took a lot for me. It did take, like I said, it took probably 8 months to decide whether I wanted to do it. You know, it's a dangerous event, no matter what anyone says.
Yeah.
It's
Very dangerous. Yeah.
People don't realize it. Even I didn't realize until you get there. You don't realize how dangerous it is. But yeah, but so glad that I got to do it. You know, now it probably was like there's stuff that I still want to do, but that was a big tick. And people ask me now, they say, do you want to do it again? And would you do it again? I'm like, I'd love to do it again, but I wouldn't do it again to go and finish it. The only way I would go and do it again is if I got on a proper team with a load of budget, and you go and do 3 or 4 rallies before it, learn the trade, you know, learn the thing properly, go to the Dakar and try and get a result, you know, try and get in the top 10 or try and win a stage or something. And to be honest, now, you know, life's good. 3 good kids, got an ace girlfriend, and do I want to risk all that to go and do the Dakar again? Nah. Might as well go and do the TT. Same thing. So, so it's one of them things again. I'm happy. I'm happy with going to finish it. I know that I went and rode it steady away, and that's good enough. That's good enough for me.
Yeah. I bet your steady pace though, your steady pace was still pretty incredible. I bet.
Well, we had a laugh, Steve. It was so I've ridden in sand, known as a good sand rider. I ride a lot of sand. At the Dakar, the sand, I hated it. It was because so different sand dunes. I didn't know how to read them. You know, you feel so lost. But once you got onto the rocky stuff, there was a hell of a lot of rocks. I loved it. And I was cruising along on the rocky stuff and passing people, like thinking, these guys have looked like they've never ridden a motorbike in their life. So all the tricky rocky terrain that there was, like down riverbeds and stuff, that was what I thrived on, weirdly. And I thought the whole sand dune stuff would have been down my street, but it wasn't, because it was so hard to read. I picked it up after 2 weeks. I was picking it up. I was realizing them guys are riding there. Why are they riding there and not there? And you start figuring it out. So, and the whole road book thing, you can only go as fast as what you can look at that road book.
Yeah.
And like David Costera, that's the main guy in charge of the Dakar, he said to me, he said, you're probably the most inexperienced rider ever to come and do the Dakar. You've done one rally that was like a Baja, and you don't know how to use a road book properly because you haven't had the opportunity. And I was like, I know. But I said, it was a case of coming to do it now or probably never. So
Yeah.
I'd rather do it. I never like doing things half-assed. I like doing things to the best of my ability. But that was no option. It was either go and do it half-assed.
That was your opportunity.
Or never do it again. So
yeah,
that's how it went.
Fantastic. Nida, I got so many questions, but I've kept you a long time, so we might move on from your career stuff and just a couple other little questions and that sort of thing. The MBE, I know it's an award from the Queen, but I don't know. I don't even know what MBE stands for. But yeah, you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the MBE stands for a member of the British Empire. An OBE is, what was an OBE? We were talking about this the other day, actually.
Order, maybe?
Yeah, Order of the British Empire.
Yeah.
I'm a member of the British Empire. And then you've got your knighthood and stuff above that. But that comes as a shock, because that's not something, some people go out and chase things like that, I guess, but I almost felt embarrassed with it. I still do now, but people say, oh, you've achieved so much and that, which I have. And then you look at other people and you think, well, yeah, maybe you do deserve one, but it wasn't anything that, it wasn't anything that I strive for, but it was a lovely surprise when I got it through the whatever, and it was on New Year's Day on the honours list. So it's nice when you get recognised like that, because in our sport, you do feel like you don't get recognised that well
for sure.
on the bigger picture. So that was it was a nice surprise, but at the same time, it was like, oh, you almost felt embarrassed by it. But then, and I'm not one of them, like, I dreaded going to London and doing all that, but
not your comfort zone.
Out of your comfort zone, and you spend all morning learning how to accept it, and what you should do, walking up to the Queen and stuff, and you watch these videos, and most of the people there, everyone was lovely. There was, got chatting to a few guys, and they were all ex-Marines and military, mainly military people and stuff, which everyone just got massive respect for them boys. So then, and the Queen herself was doing it, which was quite rare as well. So got to meet the Queen, and it was ace. It was, it was a day you never ever forget, and it surprised me. It was enjoyable. It was nerve-wracking, but it was enjoyable. And one of them things that you could never imagine happening. That was ace, and I think it was nice for my mum as well to see me get it. She's obviously very proud of all that type of thing, and as I am, but I think it was nice for her, after being there, my dad not seeing it and stuff, for her to see it and that happened. So yeah, that was pretty good.
Cool. What's your greatest achievement?
Racing wise, there's so many, but the one that does stick out in my mind is the ISDE. I would say.
Yeah.
First World Championship's always good, and that was good because I lost my dad halfway through the year, so that made it even tougher than it normally would be. But the 6-day enduro, that was You know, you grew up watching that, and people from the Isle of Man going to it, and everyone. You always knew about. I always knew about the ISDE. So to be able
Yeah.
to go there and to be the only British rider still in the history of the event to win, you
Mm.
know, it's about
Yeah.
time one of the Brits. You know, now you've got Holcomb, Freeman, them guys that can easily go and win the 6 days,
Mm.
but it's such a hard event to win, and no one's done it. You know,
Yeah.
there's been what is it, 100 years, 100 and something years old now, and there's been the only British rider to ever win it, and it started in Britain. It started in Cumbria, so that's really special for me. And I do wish now that another Brit would win it, because I've had my time of being the only British rider to have won it and to win it outright. There's been a lot of Aussies win it lately.
Yeah. Yeah. We've
Um,
done okay over the years, like,
yeah, they're
I
really
guess,
good.
I guess, like,
Milner,
obviously Milner and Sanders in recent times. Watsy, Watsy won
what
it. I'm just trying to think. I think I'm forgetting someone.
Merriman?
Yeah, Stefan.
It's,
Yeah, I think Stefan outrided. I think
I
so.
beat Stefan in Slovakia when I won it. He was second, so I beat Stefan in that. But
I think he
yeah,
did. Yeah.
it's been a good event for the Aussies. They've always gone well in it.
Mm.
Like just saying, the only time I've been to Australia is Aussie 4 Day in '07.
Yeah.
Mental.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's mental that I know so many people in Australia, and that's the only. And I loved it when I come over. I absolutely loved it. It was so like the Isle of Man, very laid back. Everyone's
Yeah.
quite laid back, good crack.
Yeah.
One of my mates had moved over there a few years before, so he come to the race, and Leesky was in charge. He was KTM back then, and Leesky
Yeah.
went right. It was brilliant. Um, I wish I'd stayed longer. And then Glenn and Crystal, I knew them from America. So Crystal ran around after getting all my baggage went missing. She went shopping for me and bought me a load of clothes, and she was making me sandwiches at the checkpoints. And Glenn was riding. We had it right. It was ace. It was one of them events.
Mm.
So I did speak to someone a few months ago saying I want to come and do the 4 Day again next or this year, but I don't think there is one this year, is there?
Nah. Nah.
So
That's
next year we need to be
it's
over next year to do it. I'm
the
feeling a
four
good
days.
trip.
Yeah. The 4 days been a real problem. Real problem to get off the ground. It's the regulations required to get access to the roads and that sort of thing, and the amount of red tape and that in Australia for
Yeah,
that is just
yeah,
incredible. That's the main thing, and so it sort of relies on a lot of volunteer work to organise them,
yeah.
and the volunteers, the work and the trouble with the red tape and it just
I think that's getting
too
same
hard.
everywhere. Same
Mm,
here, same everywhere, and that's what will kill the TT in that in the end, I guess. It's all the
yeah,
insurance and
yeah.
that. But yeah, but it was an ace event. Coffs Harbour I rode. It was brilliant.
Mm.
Russell Crowe owns most of that, doesn't he?
Oh, I don't know. He probably. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
he
was
owns. Yeah,
he had the football team and stuff, and where the race started, he owned the football ground and everything.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
it was
yeah.
good.
No.
But yeah, so if the 4 days on next year, I need to get over.
Yeah, that'd be. Yeah, that'd be. I hope so. It's one of them things. I'm always like, geez, I don't know when the 4 day will be back, but
And all the Aussies. The funny thing was at the 4 day, I hardly drank. Like I hardly ever drink. Still, I will now and then, like a special occasion or something. But I hardly ever drink. And all the Aussies, because I was from the Isle of Man or whatever, they all thought I was a pisshead. So they were all buying me beers and drinks and trying to. And I was like, what am I going to do here? So my mates were over. They were finishing most of them. A couple of mates that were there, they were knocking them in them. But yeah, we had a right laugh. It was funny. But just ace atmosphere. They're the races that you miss.
yeah,
They're definitely races that you miss throughout your career, when ones that have got a bit of atmosphere and a bit of banter and a
yeah.
bit of socialism at them.
It's the one of the best things about the sport, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
The Dukes of Hazzard helmet design. I've
yeah.
always wondered about that. What's the background to that?
Just because I loved it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I think we all did, didn't we? At that
Oh, I
era,
did. Yeah, I did for sure. I
yeah, it
loved
was
it. Yeah.
ace. And so then when I went to America, Was it before? No, so 04. I just liked it, and I thought, and at the time, we were getting chased in the Isle of Man here, so we used to ride wherever we wanted to, and then you had this warden, they had this forestry warden, so he used to chase us everywhere and like have the camera out filming us and stuff. So we felt like the Duke boys, and he was like Roscoe trying to catch us.
Yeah,
And then the whole Confederate flag thing, like, so we thought, oh, we'll be the Manx Confederates. So that's where I changed the stars on the helmet to the 3 legs of man. So it was like,
yeah.
it was like a Manx Confederate flag, really. Bit of fun. We used to get chased by him, and he hated motorbikes. He was like, but in the end, it turned into a game. I think he enjoyed chasing us, and we enjoyed getting away from him and causing havoc. So it did that, and so I had the 01 on the side. I just thought it would be a cool helmet job, and it just stuck with me. It was ace, and everyone knows me from it. But then when I went to America, they give me the number. You had to have a 3-digit number. They give us 111. And I was like, I don't want 111 because Watsy had that, Salmonen had that. Everyone that goes to America from Europe or Australia has treble 1. And I thought I'll have 101 because I couldn't have 01, but I could have the Duke's Hazard number, but with the 1 in front of it.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. So I had 101 on my helmet, the 3 legs and everything. And it was ace. The Yanks loved it. Like people knew it loved it, but the Yanks loved it because the full redneck thing, wasn't it? And the Duke's Hazard. And but even back then, so the Dakar, I got told to take it off. I had to wear my other one and tape the stars out on it because they said, "Oh, it's racist," and all that. I said, "It's nothing racist about it. I like the TV show. That's it. You'll make."
Yeah.
I also had that in GNCC, the TV company that did the production for the TV for American TV was in Georgia, in Atlanta, and they hated it. They were like, "You can't wear that helmet. Why is this guy wearing this helmet? It's racist and all this." And I was like, I said, if they want to take it as being racist, that's their problem, not mine. I said, I just love the Duke's Hazard as a kid growing up. I had all the toys.
That's all it's about.
It's cool. And that's all it was. It says it's like, that's as basic and simple as the story is. I thought it looked good. I wanted something. I wanted a helmet that, like Joey Dunlop had his yellow helmet and everyone knew Joey for his helmet. I wanted the same thing. So it was bright orange with 101 with the 3 legs of man on the top with the, and that was it. It was just a bit of fun. And I still wear it now, and change it a little bit, but it's pretty, what it is now is pretty much what it was in 2006.
Yeah,
so,
it's iconic and it's very cool, man. Cool. One last question, man. Who was your biggest rival?
Biggest rival in enduro, I would say, even though we never raced each other that much, was Salmonen. He was so clean cut, perfectionist riding, really neat style. I was completely different style to him, but and did everything completely different to you are, but we ended up achieving very similar things. He was very, just very different to what I was, but had probably the same belief, same passion. He's one of the ones that once he finished riding, he just stopped like that. That's him. Doesn't care. Probably doesn't care if he races a motorbike ever again. Where I'll be still racing when I'm 80 something. I'll be one of them. I can never. I love it. I'll always race. I'll always ride bikes.
Like oxygen.
Yeah, them guys are just sort of, they put everything into it, and then you'll just that's it, retired, and live happily ever after. So I would say Juha, he was the biggest one early on, like 2001, and that I was battling with, and he was the main guy then, and I was this young kid. And everyone always compared us, but we never really actually raced head to head that many years, that often. He went to America, he came back. I went to America, I came back. He ended up racing a Husky on the small class. So but I would say him, Smoothly Arrow as well. Smoothly was a good bloke. He was super talented. Won a lot of world titles. We had some good battles, but yeah, I would say Yuha and Smoothly.
Cool. Couple of last things. The I see on that Kawasaki you got a gut seat on it.
Yeah, that's it. Best there is.
That's it. The best there is. So yeah, it's worked out perfectly. So obviously I'm sponsored by the show here is sponsored by Guts Racing, and the I keep lucking upon the guests. I don't plan it that way, but I keep lucking upon guests lately that run a Guts seat. So that's fantastic. You see, I reckon you've probably got the tall
Yeah,
seat foam in that.
that's the thing. Yeah, main thing that I always change is a seat, tall seat. I have quite low handlebars, always a tall seat, and the boys at Guts has been ace over the years. Like I think I started using them on the Cowie in 2009, and I've
Yeah.
used them pretty much ever since. And yeah, they're ace. Them boys always looked after me. Cracking product, and I'll message them from the Isle of Man, and I'll have a seat there within a week usually. So yeah, if you need a tall seats or any seats, get under them boys.
It doesn't. I don't need to say much. It doesn't get much better recommendation than that. That Knight has been using a gut seat for like 15 years with all his success. And yeah, certainly if you're big and tall like Knighter, the our Guts, you can get the tall seat foams. You can get the wide wing seat. You can get anything you want. So gutsracing.com. It's a very easy one to remember there. Gutsracing.com. Make sure you get around that. And then
Spot
the
on.
last thing I do on the show, Nida. So there's a long there's a backstory I won't bore you with, but I sing a bit of Kenny Rogers for the outro of the song. And I always say it's just a weird thing. I always say to people, if you know the words to Kenny Rogers, the Gambler, then by all means you're welcome to join in. But most people don't, so that's okay.
My brother would. My brother's a massive Kenny Rogers fan, so he would have.
Well, yeah, he can probably sing it better than me too. But it's just a little funny thing I like to do. So I'll just ease into a bit of Kenny.
Good man.
So I handed him my bottle, and he drank down my last swallow. Then he bummed a cigarette and asked me for a light. And the night got deathly quiet, and his face lost all expression. Said, if you're gonna play the game, boy, you gotta learn to play it right. You got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, know when to run. You never count your money. When you're sitting at the table, there'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done. David
Good
Knight.
man. I
It's
didn't
been
want
a
to
pleasure,
interrupt you because
mate.
you sounded that good. I thought I'm just on leaving here because quite like listening to that.
It's been an absolute pleasure, man, talking to you. Yeah,
Yeah, I
love to
knew.
talk to you. I'd love to talk to you again someday, and love to meet you if you do get down to ride in Australia. Thank you very
No,
much, man.
defo. Good man. Cheers, Steve.
All right, thank you,
All
much
the best.
appreciated. Cheers, man.
See ya.
Bye.